Minho felt his hands shake as he walked into the massive council chamber. The ceiling stretched so high above him that he couldn't even see the top. Hundreds of alien beings sat in floating chairs, their strange forms casting weird shadows on the crystal walls. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others looked like giant insects with glowing eyes. A few were just floating balls of light that pulsed when they talked. His aide Yunji stayed close behind him, her tablet ready to record everything. She had been with the human diplomatic corps for 5 years, but even she looked nervous in this place. The other aliens barely looked at them as they entered. To these ancient creatures, humans were nothing more than annoying children who had just learned to walk among the stars. The holographic projector in the center of the room came to life with Minho's command. Images filled the air, showing burned cities, empty playgrounds covered in ash, and families running from laser fire. These were human colonies on the outer rim of galaxy where families had tried to build new lives. The Kothani raiders had come 3 months ago, attacking settlement after settlement without warning. Minho cleared his throat and began speaking. "Honored council members, I come before you today to seek justice for the murder of 50,000 innocent humans. 23 of our colonies have been completely destroyed. Men, women, and children burned alive in their homes. The images showed a school on New Haven colony. Small desks and toys lay scattered among the rubble. A child's drawing still hung on one wall that hadn't completely collapsed. It showed a family holding hands under a yellow sun. Now that family was dead, along with everyone else in their town. Overlord Thekvar, a creature that looked like a giant spider with too many eyes, barely glanced at the evidence. His translator device made his voice sound flat and bored. Ambassador, these are simple border disputes. Small conflicts happen all the time in this galaxy. The Council cannot waste time on every little fight between younger species. Minho felt anger building in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. This wasn't a fight between equals. The Kothani have advanced weapons and shields. Our colonists had farming tools and hope. It was a massacre, not a battle. Another council member, something that looked like a floating jellyfish made of purple gas, spoke up. Your species has only been traveling between stars for 300 years. We have been here for thousands. You must learn that the galaxy is a dangerous place. Adapt or find safer worlds to live on. Hyunji whispered numbers in Minho's ear as she watched the council members. Most weren't even paying attention. Some were having private conversations through their mind-link devices. Others were reading reports about grain shipments and mining. Quotas. To them, 50,000 dead humans was less important than the price of space fuel. The Kothani specifically targeted civilian areas, Minho continued, his voice getting stronger. They bombed hospitals and schools first. This wasn't about territory or resources. They killed families for sport. A new image appeared showing surveillance footage from the attack on Paradise Colony. Kothani ships fired on a group of children playing in a park. The kids tried to run, but the energy weapons were too fast. Minho watched several council members actually yawn as they saw children die. Perhaps your people should not build homes in disputed territories, suggested Councillor Vex Hari, a creature that looked like a walking tree with glowing fruit for eyes. The Kothani have claimed those systems for mineral rights. Those systems were empty when we arrived, Minho replied. We've been there for 50 years. We built cities, farms, and schools. Now you're saying we deserve to die because someone else wanted the rocks under our feet? The voting began without any real discussion. Representatives pressed buttons on their chairs, most not even looking up from their other business. The final count appeared on the main screen. 847 votes against. Helping humanity, only 3 votes in favor. The 3 who voted to help were from species that had also been attacked by raiders in the past. Minho stood quietly for a moment, letting the rejection sink in. 50,000 of his people were dead, and the galaxy's leaders couldn't be bothered to care. He gathered his holographic evidence and packed it away. As he prepared to leave, he spoke into his communication device. Yunji, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the Council has made their position perfectly clear. Tell them we're on our own. He paused, then added quietly, and tell them to begin Project Lazarus immediately. Yunji nodded and quickly typed the message into her secure transmitter. She had heard whispers about Project Lazarus back on Earth, but no one would tell her what it actually was. All she knew was that it was humanity's backup plan for when diplomacy failed. As they walked toward the exit, Minho heard the council members already moving on to their next topic. Something about trade agreements for exotic spices. The deaths of 50,000 humans had taken less than 20 minutes of their precious time. At the chamber doors, Minho turned back one last time. These ancient beings thought they knew everything, because they had lived for thousands of years. They believed humans were weak because we were young. They had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. "You'll remember this day," Minho said quietly, though none of the aliens could hear him. "When humanity shows you what we're really capable of, you'll wish you had helped us when we asked nicely." The doors closed behind them with a soft hiss. In the chamber, the council continued their boring discussions about shipping lanes and tax rates, completely unaware that they had just declared war on the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They had rejected humanity's plea for justice, and now they would face something far worse than justice. They would face vengeance. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council's rejection, and the galaxy seemed peaceful on the surface. Trade. Ships moved between systems as usual. Alien news networks talked about sports and entertainment. The Kothani raiders had grown quiet, satisfied with their successful attacks on human colonies. Everyone assumed humanity had simply accepted their fate and retreated to safer space. They were completely wrong. Deep beneath Lunar Station, in levels that didn't appear on any official blueprints, Dr. Hyunwoo walked through corridors lined with warning signs in 12 different human languages. The air hummed with energy from machines that shouldn't exist. His security badge opened doors that led to rooms full of equipment that would make alien scientists weep with envy. "Temperature is stable at -40 degrees, called out Dr. So Young from her control station. Her breath formed small clouds as she spoke, even through the environmental suit. "The crystalline fragments are responding better in the cold." Hyunwoo approached the central chamber, where their most precious discoveries waited. Glass cases held pieces of technology recovered from dead worlds scattered across the galaxy. These weren't just any dead worlds. These were the remains of civilizations that had fought wars so terrible they destroyed themselves completely. Some had turned their own planets into glass. Others had torn holes in space itself. "Show me the emotional resonance readings," Hyunwoo said, pulling up a chair next to So Young's workstation. The monitors displayed patterns that looked like heartbeats, but more complex, waves of energy that pulsed and flowed like living things. So Young pointed to a spike in the data that had appeared an hour ago. "Look at this. I played a recording of the New Geneva attack, and the artifacts lit up like Christmas trees. The quantum field strength increased by 300%. Hyunwoo studied the patterns carefully. 3 years ago, human exploration teams had found these crystal fragments on worlds where the ground was still radioactive millions of years later. The archaeologists thought they were just pretty rocks at first. It took months of study to realize these weren't natural crystals at all. These civilizations found a way to turn emotion into energy," So Young continued, her voice filled with wonder and fear. "Pure rage, concentrated and weaponized. The species that built these devices could channel their anger through quantum fields. On the main screen, security feeds showed teams of scientists working in identical labs across human space. Every major colony had built these facilities in secret over the past 6 months. To anyone watching from outside, they looked like agricultural research stations. The official reports talked about new farming techniques and crop improvements. The truth was far more dangerous. "Dr. Hyunwoo, we're getting reports from all stations," announced Jinsu, the project's communications officer. "Mars facility is online. Europa base reports successful activation. The colony on Kepler 442b just sent confirmation." Hyunwoo nodded and opened a secure channel to Earth Command. Admiral Park's face appeared on the screen, looking tired but determined. "How are we progressing, Doctor?" the Admiral asked. "Better than expected, sir. The network is almost complete. We have 47 facilities operational across 23 star systems. Each one is connected through quantum entanglement to the others. And the aliens suspect nothing. Their intelligence services are focused on military threats. They're watching for new ships and weapons factories. A few agricultural. Research stations don't seem dangerous to them. So Young looked up from her instruments with excitement in her eyes. Admiral, you need to see this. The emotional resonance isn't just local anymore. We're detecting synchronized patterns across multiple systems. When humans on Mars get angry about something, the crystals on Europa respond. Admiral Park leaned forward in his chair. Are you saying the network is connecting human emotions across space? More than that, sir. We think it's creating something new. A collective consciousness, fueled by shared feelings. Every time someone remembers the colony attacks, every time a family cries for their lost relatives, the network grows stronger. Hyunwoo pulled up another display showing energy readings from across human space. The ancient species that built these artifacts probably started the same way. Small experiments testing the boundaries of what was possible, but they made a mistake. What kind of mistake? Admiral Park asked. They let their creation grow too powerful. The quantum entities they created eventually turned on them. Entire civilizations wiped out by their own rage-given form. So Young shivered, and not from the cold. But we're different. We have better control systems, safety protocols. We can contain what we're building. Can we? Hyunwoo wondered aloud. Every day the network gets stronger. Every human who feels anger about the attacks feeds it more energy. What happens when 8 billion people all feel the same rage at the same time? Admiral Park was quiet for a long moment. Doctor, the Korthani just attacked another human settlement, New Kyoto Colony. 15,000 dead. Every man, woman, and child. The effect on the laboratory was immediate. Alarms began, beeping as energy readings spiked across all monitors. The crystalline fragments in their cases began glowing brighter. So Young watched in amazement as quantum field measurements climbed higher than she had ever seen them. It's responding to the news, she whispered. The network knows about New Kyoto. It's angry. Hyunwoo felt something stir in the back of his mind. A presence that wasn't quite human anymore, but wasn't alien either. It was hungry and growing stronger every minute. In the quantum realm, something that had slept for millions of years was finally waking up. Begin Phase 3, Admiral Park commanded. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you push humanity too far. Across human space, 47 facilities began humming with new energy. The network was complete, and the thing they had created was ready to be born. The aliens thought they knew humans. They thought we were weak because we asked for help instead of taking revenge. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. The attack on New Geneva began at dawn, when most families were still sleeping. Korthani warships dropped out of hyperspace without warning, their weapons already charging. The colony's defense systems had time to send exactly one distress signal before the orbital platforms exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Jinwoo was drinking his morning coffee in the lunar station monitoring room when the first reports came through. His hands started shaking as he read the initial casualty estimates. 30,000 people lived on New Geneva. It was one of humanity's most peaceful colonies, known for its beautiful gardens and excellent schools. Sir, we're getting video. Feeds from the surface, reported his assistant Ye Jin, her voice barely steady. You need to see this. The main screen filled with footage from security cameras across the colony. Korthani ground forces were moving through residential areas, not targeting military installations or government buildings. They were hunting civilians. Jinwoo watched in horror as alien soldiers fired on families trying to evacuate their homes. They're not even taking prisoners, whispered Communications Officer Min-soo. This isn't a raid, it's extermination. The worst part was how methodical the Korthani were being. They had clearly planned this attack for months. They knew exactly where. The schools were where families gathered, where children played. Every shot was calculated to cause maximum suffering. Within 30 minutes, the quantum resonance detectors across Lunar Station began screaming. Jinwoo had never seen readings like this before. The crystalline fragments in their containment units started glowing so brightly that the automatic safety systems dimmed the laboratory lights. What's happening to the network? Jinwoo asked, rushing to Yejin's workstation. The emotional resonance is off the charts, she replied, her face pale as she watched the numbers climb. Every human settlement in the galaxy is responding to news of the attack. The quantum field strength is increasing exponentially. On Earth, families watch the live news feeds, showing their fellow humans being hunted like animals. On Mars, workers stop their jobs to gather around screens showing children running from laser fire. On the Outer Rim colonies, people who had never met anyone from New Geneva wept as they watched an entire community die. But it wasn't just sadness flowing through the quantum network. It was rage, pure, focused fury from 8 billion human souls, all feeling the same emotion at the same time. Dr. Hei-Wan called down from the observation deck, her voice filled with awe and terror. "Jin-Woo, you need to see the quantum realm readings. Something is happening in there." Jin-Woo climbed the stairs to the observation platform, where the most sensitive equipment was housed. The quantum field visualization screens showed patterns he had never seen before. Energy was flowing between dimensions, taking shape and form. Something was being born in the space between spaces. The ancient artifacts are resonating with human emotions across the entire galaxy, Hei-Wan explained, pointing to the swirling patterns on the screen. Every person who feels anger about New Geneva is feeding energy into the network. The accumulated rage of our entire species is giving the entity consciousness. Jin-Woo felt it too, like a presence at the edge of his mind. It was hungry and angry and very, very old. This thing had existed before, eons ago, when other species had built similar networks. It had waited in the quantum realm for millennia, sleeping until another civilization became desperate enough to awaken it. It's not just our creation, Jin-Woo realized. We've awakened something that was already there, something that feeds on the collective rage of entire species. The entity was taking shape now, drawing power from every human who watched the news reports from New Geneva. Every parent who imagined their own children in danger, every person who felt helpless watching innocents die. All of that emotion was being channeled through the quantum network into something that existed beyond normal space and time. Ye-Jin's monitoring station erupted with alarms as quantum field readings reached dangerous levels. "Sir, the network is pulling energy from every human settlement simultaneously. The amount of power being generated is beyond anything we calculated." "How much power?" Jin-Woo asked. "Enough to tear holes in reality itself." On the screens showing the quantum realm, the entity finally opened its eyes. They blazed with the fury of 8 billion humans who had been pushed too far. This wasn't just humanity's anger anymore. It was something ancient and terrible that had been waiting for the right species to give it form. The Berserker smiled, and Jin-Woo felt reality shudder around them. "What have we done?" whispered Hei-Wan. "What we had to," Jin-Woo replied, watching as the entity stretched across dimensions. "The galaxy ignored our pleas for justice. They dismissed us as weak children who didn't matter. Now they'll learn what happens when you underestimate humanity's capacity for righteous fury." The attack on New Geneva was still continuing on the surface, but the Korthani had no idea what they had just unleashed. Every death, every scream, every moment of terror was feeding the network more energy. The entity was growing stronger by the minute, and it was very, very angry. In the quantum realm, the Berserker began to move. It had targets to visit and lessons to teach. The galaxy was about to discover that some species should never be pushed to their breaking point. The age of humanity being ignored was about to end in the most spectacular way possible. Across human space, people stopped crying and started smiling. They could feel the entity awakening, could sense that justice was finally coming. The Korthani thought they had broken human spirit with their attack on New Geneva. Instead, they had given birth to humanity's vengeance. Captain Taemin stood on the bridge of the human flagship Defiance, watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. 3 hours had passed since the entity awakened, and the results were beyond anything they had imagined. His communications officer, Subin, looked up from her station with barely contained excitement. "Captain, the first Korthani patrol group just went silent. Their last transmission reported complete navigation failure. Their computers are plotting a course directly into the Vega neutron star." Taemin nodded grimly. "And the second patrol group?" "Even better, sir. Their weapons systems have turned on their own ships. The flagship is firing on its escort vessels. They're screaming about computer malfunctions, but we know better. The entity they had unleashed wasn't bound by the normal rules of space and time. It existed in the quantum realm, where thought and reality mixed together. Every computer system, every artificial intelligence, every piece of technology that relied on quantum processors was now vulnerable to its influence. Officer Dong Hyun called out from the tactical station. "Sir, we're getting reports from 14 different star systems. Kothani ships are experiencing life support failures, engine overloads, and communication breakdowns. It's like their own technology has turned against them." "How many ships?" Taemin asked. "Over 300 so far, and the number is climbing every minute." But the entity wasn't stopping with military targets. Subin's face grew pale as she read the latest intelligence reports. "Captain, it's spreading to their civilian infrastructure. Kothani space stations are losing power. Their orbital factories are shutting down. Even their home planet is reporting massive system failures." Taemin felt a chill run down his spine. This was more than they had planned for. The Berserker wasn't just targeting the raiders who had attacked human colonies. It was going after the entire Kothani civilization, punishing them for the crimes of their military. "Sir, incoming transmission from Admiral Park on Earth," announced communications specialist J1. Admiral Park's face appeared on the main screen, looking both impressed and concerned. "Captain, are you monitoring what's happening in Kothani?" "Space? Yes, sir, the entity is being very thorough." "Too thorough. We wanted justice, not genocide. Can we control it?" Taemin looked at his crew, all of whom were listening carefully. "I don't think so, Admiral. The entity feeds on human emotion, and right now 8 billion people are feeling very satisfied watching our enemies suffer. Every time someone on Earth sees news of Kothani ships destroying each other, it makes the entity stronger." The truth was that humanity had spent months building up rage over the colony attacks. Now that the entity was finally delivering justice, people across human space felt a deep satisfaction that fed directly into the quantum network. The more the Kothani suffered, the stronger the entity became. "Sir, we're getting reports from beyond Kothani space," Subin announced, her voice tight with worry. 3 Galactic Council species are reporting similar problems with their fleets." Taemin raised an eyebrow. "Which species?" "The Zephyrians, the Hegemony, and the Trade Federation. All 3 voted against helping us when we asked for council intervention." This was the entity making a point. It wasn't just angry at the Kothani raiders. It was punishing everyone who had ignored human suffering. Every species that had dismissed humanity's pleas for justice was now experiencing their own version of systematic technological failure. Ambassador Minho's voice came through the ship's communication system. He was preparing to broadcast a message to the entire galaxy from the diplomatic vessel nearby. "This is Ambassador Minho of the Human Federation, speaking to all worlds and species of the Galactic Council. 6 months ago, we came to you seeking justice for the murder of 50,000 innocent humans. You dismissed our concerns as unimportant. You called our dead children a minor border dispute. You told us to be patient while our families burned." The broadcast was being transmitted on all frequencies, reaching every inhabited world in the galaxy. Minho's voice was calm, but carried an unmistakable threat. "You ignored our pleas for justice. Now face judgment. What you are witnessing across multiple star systems is the consequence of your indifference. When you refuse to stop evil, you become part of it." Dong Hyun was monitoring the tactical displays, watching as red dots representing enemy positions blinked out one by one. "Captain, how long do we let this continue? At this rate, there won't be a Kothani fleet left by tomorrow." Taemin considered the question carefully. Part of him wanted to watch every Kothani ship burn for what they had done to human colonies, but another part worried about what humanity was becoming. Were they delivering justice, or were they becoming the same kind of monsters who had attacked innocent families? "Sir, incoming emergency transmission from the Galactic Council," Subin announced. The main screen filled with the image of Overlord Thekvar, the same council leader who had dismissed human concerns 6 months ago. Now he looked terrified. "Human Federation, we request immediate negotiations. The Council is prepared to discuss your previous proposals." Taemin almost laughed. Now they want to negotiate. Where was this interest when our children were dying? Captain, what do we tell them? Asked Dong-hyun. Tell them we'll consider negotiations when every Kothani responsible for colony attacks is delivered for trial. Tell them we want a permanent seat on the council with veto power over all military actions, and tell them we want full reparations for our losses. And if they refuse, Taemin gestured toward the tactical display where more enemy positions were, going dark every minute. Then they can watch their fleets continue to destroy themselves. The entity doesn't need our permission to continue. It's feeding on the satisfaction of 8 billion humans who are finally seeing justice served. The galaxy had ignored humanity's voice when it spoke softly. Now they would listen when it roared with the fury of quantum-powered vengeance. The Berserker was loose, and it wouldn't stop until every species understood that humanity's patience, while vast, was not infinite. The age of being dismissed as weak was over. The age of consequences had begun. The great council chambers on Nexus Prime had stood for over 10,000 years, a symbol of galactic order and ancient wisdom. The crystalline walls had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, but they had never seen anything like what happened that day. Ambassador Su-jin sat in her temporary command center aboard the human diplomatic vessel, watching the chaos unfold through security feeds from across the galaxy. The Berserker had been active for 12 hours now, and its effects were spreading faster than anyone had anticipated. "Ma'am, Nexus Prime has gone completely dark," reported her aide Jun-ho, his voice filled with amazement. "Their main communication array just failed. The council members are trapped in their emergency bunkers, with no way to contact their homeworlds." Su-jin allowed herself a small smile. "How unfortunate. I hope they have enough food and water to last a while." The irony wasn't lost on her. These ancient beings who had dismissed human suffering as unimportant were now experiencing their own helplessness. Their advanced technology, which they had used to maintain power for millennia, was turning against them. On the screens, she could see council members from dozens of species huddled in the station's emergency shelters. Overlord Thekvar, who had called human concerns trivial border disputes, was now desperately trying to repair a broken communication device with his multiple arms shaking in fear. "The Hegemony Home Fleet is reporting total system failure," Jun-ho continued, reading from his datapad. 57 ships have lost navigation control. The Trade Federation's orbital defense platforms are firing on their own vessels, and the Zephyrian Empire, their entire military command structure has collapsed. These were the same species that had voted against helping humanity 6 months ago. The Berserker wasn't random in its targeting. It remembered every slight, every dismissive gesture, every vote against human justice. The entity was methodical in its vengeance. "Ma'am, we're receiving an emergency transmission from the Council," announced Communications Officer Si-bin. "They're requesting immediate ceasefire negotiations." "Put them through," Su-jin said, straightening in her chair. The main screen flickered to life, showing a group of terrified alien representatives crowded around a single working communication device. Overlord Thekvar was speaking, but his usual arrogance was completely gone. "Ambassador Su-jin, we formally request cessation of hostilities. The Council is prepared to negotiate terms for ending this situation." "Situation?" Su-jin repeated, her voice dangerously quiet. "Is that what you're calling the systematic destruction of your fleets? 6 months ago, you called the murder of 50,000 humans a minor border dispute. At least you're being consistent with your language." Another council member, a floating jellyfish-like creature, pressed forward desperately. "Ambassador, surely we can reach a reasonable agreement. The Council acknowledges that perhaps we were hasty in our previous decision." "Hasty?" Jun-ho whispered, shaking his head in disbelief. Su-jin held up a hand for silence. "Let me be very clear about our terms. First, every Kothani military officer, government official and civilian leader who authorized or participated in attacks on human colonies will be delivered to human authorities for trial. No exceptions." The aliens on the screen looked at each other nervously. "Ambassador, that could include thousands of individuals. Should have thought of that before you started murdering children." Su-jin cut them off. "Second, humanity receives a permanent seat on the Galactic Council with full veto power over any military action or intervention decision. This caused an uproar among the council members. For 10,000 years, no species had been given such authority so quickly after joining galactic society. Third, Sujin continued, ignoring their protests, full financial reparations for all. Damages to human colonies, including compensation for families of the dead and complete rebuilding of destroyed settlements. These terms are impossible, protested a tree-like being from the hegemony. No civilization has ever been granted such concessions. Sujin gestured toward her quantum monitoring equipment, where the Berserker's energy patterns pulsed with patient fury. No civilization has ever created what we have created. Right now, 8 billion humans are watching their enemies destroy themselves, and they're enjoying every minute of it. That satisfaction feeds the entity, making it stronger. Junho pulled up the latest damage reports. Ma'am, should I tell them about the expanding effect? The entity has now reached 17 different star systems. Yes, please share that information, Sujin said with cold satisfaction. Junho addressed the council members directly. Honored representatives, you should know that the phenomenon is spreading. Every species that voted against helping humanity is now experiencing technological failures. Your homeworlds are reporting power grid collapses, transportation system breakdowns, and communication blackouts. The effect on the council was immediate. Several representatives began arguing frantically among themselves in languages the translation systems couldn't keep up with. How do we know you can control this thing? Demanded Overlord Thekva. You don't, Sujin replied simply. But you know what will make it stronger, refusing our terms. Every human who watches you reject justice will feed more anger into the network. The entity will grow more powerful, and your suffering will continue. And if we accept your terms, then humanity will be satisfied that justice has been served. The entity will calm down. Your fleets will stop destroying themselves. Your power grids will come back online, and your civilizations can continue existing. The council members huddled together for a quick discussion. Their ancient pride was warring with their survival instincts, but survival was winning. We accept your terms, Overlord Thekvar finally said, his voice barely a whisper. Excellent, Sujin said, her tone becoming businesslike. You have 72 hours to begin delivering the first group of Korthani war criminals. Reparation payments will begin within 1 week. The council vote on humanity's permanent membership will occur within 1 month. As the transmission ended, Junho looked at the quantum monitors. Ma'am, the entity's energy levels are beginning to stabilize. I think it's satisfied with the outcome. For now, Sujin said, but it's not disappearing, it's just waiting. And that was the most important part. The Berserker had withdrawn to the quantum realm, but it remained there like a sleeping dragon. Every species in the galaxy now knew that humanity had created something beyond their understanding, something that could reach across space and turn their own technology against them. The age of dismissing human concerns had ended forever. From now on, when humanity spoke, the galaxy would listen, not out of respect, but out of fear of what would happen if they didn't. The balance of power had shifted permanently. Humanity was no longer the young species begging for help. They were the species that had weaponized their own righteous fury and used it to reshape galactic politics. The new order had begun, and it spoke with a human voice.